It's the journey, not the destination.
Oh, is it?
Apparently.
Yeah. I thought this discussion was going to be pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so did I.
With a sort of foregone conclusion between one or the other, but it turns out there is much to discuss on this topic.
Hello, I'm Liz.
And I'm Jamie.
Welcome to Follow the Boat, in which we discuss what it's really like to give it all up to live on a boat.
And go travelling around the world. We've been doing it since 2006 and we're still at it.
Each week we talk about our latest YouTube videos.
And about boats, sailing, travel or anything else which floats into our heads.
And if you leave a comment we like, we'll give you an answer and a name check. Peace and fair winds. So welcome to our podcast 018 in the third series. It's Monday. What's the date? 15th, is that right?
I've no idea.
Oh gosh, I don't even know what the day is. It's the 16th, Monday the 16th of May. We're recording this today and the live recording will go up later this week.
Yeah, now we're doing it today early because we have more diving.
Yeah.
And we're going to go off and do some shopping in Manado, which is the main big town on the other side of the northeast corner of Sulawesi. So a new adventure for us, and it's a new destination, of course.
It's a new destination.
I wonder what the journey will be like.
Yes, well, we'll find out tomorrow when we go with our lovely driver, who we discovered a couple of days ago. He's going to pick us up. But before that, we have to go to immigration because yet again, Indonesia, last week, they changed the rules 3 times.
Yeah, they changed the rule twice within 24 hours, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll find out when we tomorrow at immigration where we stand.
Yeah, it's a bit of a messy situation, isn't it? Because I think they're trying to introduce a new kind of visa. We're caught in between this transitional period. And someone somewhere is making these decisions. Oh, well, in between these two periods, we're going to apply these set of rules.
Yes.
And of course, everyone's up in arms because it's affecting a lot of people.
And then they change it, don't
Yeah.
they? They say, oh, no, that doesn't work. We'll change it to this. And then they realise that doesn't work either. So we've been caught in the middle. And tomorrow when we go to immigration, we will find out what our next destination will be, won't we? So, yeah, do you want to explain why we've chosen this topic? Because it's a well-trodden topic over the years with numbers of people.
It's because the last episode that just went out on Sunday was called A Hard Slog to Paradise.
Yeah.
And as you know, if you've been following us, it's not been the greatest journey. I mean, there's been some highs and lows, certainly. But in terms of, solid sailing, it's been a bit arduous. And finally, we end up on the island of Derawan. Now, this is on the east side of Kalimantan. And well, it's a beautiful desert island, isn't it?
It is stunning. I mean, when we left KK, all the time from there to leaving Tarakan was filled with stress, anxiety, some difficult passages, some nasty weather. It's just been not the greatest of journeys, I would say. But we did spy this little place, didn't we, on the charts. And we thought, that looks interesting. It looks like there's lots of little atolls and things. Let's go there first. As soon as we've finished and we've dusted off everything in Tarakan and we've got our visas and we're ready to go, let's go there. And that's where we go on Sunday.
Yeah, it was a beautiful destination and the kind of destination us as cruisers, I guess, are looking for.
Yeah, I'd say so.
This is an idyllic paradise island. Palm-fringed white sandy beaches, beautiful friendly locals and lots of diving. Yeah. But I have to say, during that journey, getting there, I was getting quite despondent.
Yeah, you were. You really got down. And we were with a couple of other boats, and we heard later that they had as well.
It was just arduous.
Yes.
And, I was getting to that situation where I was thinking, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And, of course, this was while we were doing the journey.
Yeah.
So, naturally, you would expect me to think, well, the journey is not part of it. It truly is about the destination. But of course, perhaps as we discuss this subject more, that isn't really the case. It's not quite as transparent as that.
No, and it's well, I'll come on to my rant in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
So we're discussing life's about the journey, not the destination. It has been attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Who is he?
Well, he's some American fella. I think he was a writer.
Okay.
I'm sure people will know, but you can certainly Google his name, Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's been attributed to him, but it's also been attributed to other people. Nobody really knows. But you see it everywhere, don't you? Life is about the journey, not the destination. We've called this, it's the destination, not the journey, for a reason that we'll go into shortly. It's not just about life. We're talking about sailing. We're talking about the life that we lead as well. But it is a generalism that life's a journey, not just the destination. And one of the things you did is you put a poll on our community tab, didn't you?
Yes, and I only put it up yesterday.
Yep.
So apologies to those who may have missed it as we're recording it today, 24 hours later. But we got just under 200 votes, which was fantastic. Quite a few comments. And breaking it down, so basically we just asked, is it about the journey or the destination? And the three options were the journey, the destination, or both equally.
Yeah.
And we debated about whether we should put that third option in, because we didn't want people to be forced to say one or the other, because we got this feeling that perhaps people would see both equally. And in fact, as it turned out, literally half of all those votes voted for both equally.
Destination came really low, didn't
8%.
it? Isn't that low?
But I suspect that that's partly because those people who might have wanted to say destination perhaps went for both as well. But yeah, very low. Only 8% said destination, and then 43% said the journey.
Do you think it's skewed because most of the people who we engage with have an interest in sailing, so they're seeing it very much from the sailing point of view?
They are. And actually, I think Danny Basso's comment sort of sums this up quite nicely. Now, Danny is one of our Patreon supporters, one of our FTB mates, and we did ask our FTB mates separately for their comments. And Danny says, it is a discussion that has existed for a very long time, since the time of Ulysses, whose journey is narrated, already knowing more or less how it will end. Now, for those who don't know, Ulysses is actually Odysseus.
Yes.
Ulysses, yes, Ulysses is the Latin name. Odysseus, the Greek chap who had been in the Trojan War for 10 years.
They went on an odyssey.
That's correct, yes. And that took another 10 years.
Yeah.
And Homer's Odyssey is all about his travel back to go and meet up with his bird Helen, who thought he was dead and had been...
Isn't it Penelope?
Sorry. No, it's... Oh. It's Helen of Troy.
We're getting our Greek... No, he's got nothing to do with Helen.
Ah.
So
Penelope.
We're getting our Greek and our Roman muddled up, because I think Penelope's in the Iliad.
No,
which is Ulysses.
I have read the Iliad many years ago.
But basically, it's about the fact that he goes on this big long journey and just ends up where he started from.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes, and he loses all of his friends, I think, along the way. But yes, it is an odyssey.
Yes.
I thought Danny picking up on this was quite interesting, because he said, personally, the thought of leaving stresses me, as in leaving the destination once he's got there. I love the journey. I hate the return. The destination is not forever. It's a pleasant break. And I just wanted to read Danny's comment there, because you'd mentioned that a lot of people are invested in our sailing. Now, Danny isn't a sailor. He does do some lake sailing, but he doesn't live on a boat. So for him, his journey and destination would quite often be holidays, I suppose, weekend breaks.
Specific starts, going off somewhere for a couple of weeks or something and coming back. And I agree with him. I never wanted to come back either. I just wanted to carry on journeying.
I think as sailors, this is where perhaps we are a little bit different, maybe.
Yes.
Because for us, there isn't really a return. You know, the journey is ongoing. The last time we potentially had a return was this idea that perhaps we've got to head back to Saba, having slogged our way down all the way here, that we'd have to return. And in that case, I would definitely agree with Danny. The idea of having to return back 1,000 miles up that coastline kind of depressed me a bit.
But I agree. But that would be returning on just one chapter of a very long, our own long odyssey. I think what I find very interesting is when we meet new people, not necessarily sailors, usually non-sailors and non-crooners. Cruisers always say, when are you going to go home? Don't they? It's a question that people are obsessed with. When are you going to go home? And we don't really have an answer, because we have no plans to go home. we've discussed what home is before. Our home is here on the boat. And I suppose the better question would be, when are you going to stop doing this? And we've said in the past, maybe flippantly, well, we're going to first of all, we'll sell Esper and get an easier boat to manage as we get older. And then perhaps if we can't do that anymore, we'll get a motor boat of some kind, or we might even end up on a barge somewhere. But for both of us, this rootlessness, this ability to be able to move on somewhere else is fundamental to the way we live, I think. Do you agree with that? Or is that just me?
No, I think you're right. And it was only this morning that it occurred to me that when we first started sailing, it was very much about the journey, because it was about getting to know the boat, getting those sails out, making the most of the wind, and quite often not knowing where we were going. Just on those day hops around Turkey, it truly was about the journey.
Yeah.
And I think that that bias has changed somewhat as we've gone on, that it's quite often about a single destination at that moment in time, with the idea that there will be another journey to follow and another destination. But as you say, there is no ultimate destination.
I don't think there is. For me, there certainly isn't. And I know for me, I need to have constant water underneath my feet. I need to be able to move on. Staying anywhere for too long, I feel hemmed in, I feel caught, trapped. Even if it's just when I'm older, just getting a bus to somewhere. Do you know, when I was got my first job in London, I didn't buy season tickets. I've said this to you before, I don't think I've said it on a podcast. I couldn't bear the idea of a season ticket, because that meant that for the next year I would be doing the same journey back and forth from home into town, into the office, then back again. Although it would have saved me a lot more money, I loved the idea that one day I might just suddenly decide to do something different, not come home, go somewhere different, just do something. Could not bear the idea of knowing that that's where I would always be, in the same place. So for me, it's absolutely in part of my soul that I need to be able to move, and I need that freedom to move, to move.
And yet
on
you're stuck
somewhere.
with me.
Yeah, that's always the downside.
Yes, that one constant. Oh, bless you. There are two comments on our poll which almost contradict each other, which I quite liked. So Steve Tyner says, there is no destination in my opinion, it just becomes part of the journey. Whereas David Hightower said, without a destination to go to, you would be on an endless journey to nowhere. And it just got me thinking, there is no destination in my opinion, it is just this constant journey. And I think that's a theme that quite a lot of people picked up on.
Yeah.
This idea that this journey that we're on is full of lots of destinations that make up one long journey.
Yes, I think on that we just quickly need to break this down, because when I started to think about it a bit more deeply, I think you've got to look at it in two separate ways. There's the philosophical idea about life's a journey, and then there's the practical cruising idea of we have journeys and we have destinations. And I think they're two different things. So I looked into the philosophical one a bit more, and I found a couple of quotes that I thought were quite good. I mean, you see it everywhere. It's about the journey, not the destination. You see it all over the place. It's for self-help, for little
wellness.
Yeah, wellness.
Well-being.
Mindfulness and all that.
That's
yes.
the one, yes.
So the idea being you're on a journey, make the most of that journey. Think of every day is a new day. There's something happening all the time. It's not about your goals, it's about doing. It's doing rather than being. So there's an on the internet somewhere I found, life is a journey, not a destination, can be interpreted as a healthy balance between doing and being, between planning and letting go, between producing results and going through the required processes. So you apply all of that to life. So it's about doing, being, not actually getting somewhere and having a result. Okay, maybe that's a bit befuddled. Alan Watts. This was really interesting.
He's now, you've got in the notes here, because I didn't know Alan Watts.
Right.
He's a British philosopher.
Yeah. He comes at it from a slightly different angle to all those little platitudes we read. He says life should not be considered a journey, because a journey predisposes a destination. You can't have a journey without a destination. Well, I suppose you could argue with that. But he says it does predispose a destination, and the only destination in life, the ultimate destination, is death. So he says, life shouldn't be compared to a journey with a beginning, middle and end. The whole way along, life is a musical thing, and you're supposed to sing or dance while the music is being played. And I really loved that.
Yes, although if you take that analogy a little bit further,
Yeah.
even a piece of music has a beginning, a middle and an end.
Yeah, I know. Doesn't everything have a bit? No, it doesn't. I don't know. That's the human condition, because we're born, we live, we die. So that's how we view everything in life, isn't it? That there's a beginning, a middle and an end.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe there isn't. There is a thing called infinity. And there is the idea of no beginning as well. We're obsessed with trying to find out how life began. Maybe it didn't, maybe it's always been here. It's a weird philosophical idea, I know. Because if you can imagine infinity, that is never ending, you should be able to imagine never beginning, but that's almost impossible for humans to
Yes, but
comprehend.
you're talking that from a holistic point of view.
Yeah.
Each individual person
Yeah.
within that infinite life does have a beginning, middle and end, as far as we know.
Unless you're religious and you think that something goes on afterwards.
I wish you told me we were going down this route. I haven't had enough coffee for this
know.
philosophical debate, but it's an interesting one.
Yeah. So that was the philosophy that is behind a lot of these, behind the saying. And lots of people have got ideas on this about life being a journey, and they're simply trying to say enjoy the journey as much as enjoy what you're doing as much as what you're aiming for, which I don't think is a bad thing.
I think that's just generally a good philosophy to have on life, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you live in the moment.
Yeah.
You take each day as it comes. You make the most of every day that you live.
Yeah.
And if that day happens to coincide with you being on a journey, then you are making the most of that point in time.
The journey of life, though, remember?
Yes, but irrespective of the destination, which is perhaps your ultimate goal, if you break down all those parts leading up to the destination, then truly the journey is perhaps more important than the destination. Because if you're not enjoying that journey, then what is the point of it all in the first place?
Yes, well, yes, exactly. So that's the kind of a little bit of a cod philosophy, just scribbled down on the back of a fag packet. I think if anyone's interested, they could go into it a lot further. But we're looking at the practical applications of this aphorism, and we're applying the saying here to sailing to a destination. So it's you're sailing, you're journeying towards somewhere. Are you? Or are you forever sailing? And which bit of it is the important bit? So it could be a day hop from one place to another, or it could be a long ocean passage. It could be all kinds of different things. So that's the practical side of it. And I think we're probably better qualified to talk about that than we are about philosophy.
So how do you see our long-term journey that we've been on so far?
Yes.
Is it a journey with no destination, or do you view it as being lots of little journeys with little destinations in between? I mean, I haven't asked you this before.
No. You see, the more I think about it, the more complicated it becomes. But for me, it's at least a two-layered thing. It's, as I said earlier, just one long continuous journey. This one continuous looking for the next place, not looking for an ultimate place or an ultimate goal or trying to tick off every single place in the world or anything like that. For me, it is about constantly moving and improving myself by meeting new cultures and new people and seeing new things and experiencing new experiences. It's a holistic whole thing. So there's that on one level. But on a more practical level, there's how we're going to get from A to B and where we're going to go next. So that involves destinations. So wherever we can, we try to find destinations that interest us both in some way, that are going to challenge us or educate us in some way. I think it's got to fit in with the practicalities of the boat and the weather and all of those things. So it's a double answer, I suppose. What do you think?
I haven't given it much thought, to be honest. I think, as you say, when it comes to the boat itself, you're wrapped up in the practicalities of the boat.
Yeah.
And in terms of ultimate destination, there is none. The furthest we've got so far is discussing Japan as a possible destination, but that's not an ultimate destination, because that is like any other destination, including here, which became our latest goal or achievement or aim, was to get here. That was a destination we were aiming for. Now that we are here and having gone through that journey, we're now trying to work out where is our next destination. We're kind of wrapped up in looking forward, working out where we're going to go next. And sometimes it's quite easy to get wrapped up in that and to not sit back and say, okay, well, we've achieved this destination we've got here, let's just kick back and enjoy this destination without obsessing about where we're going to be going next.
Yeah, so I think it's both. It's the destination is a massively important part of it, because we are using the boat, we've said this before, to travel, and travelling is journeying from place to place.
No, travel is getting to a destination, is it not?
Yes, well it is, but it's also the travel in between. It's the connective tissue between the places that you see. So there is some element of education and interest in that in itself. And of course, we're on a boat. That opens up a whole can of worms, which is about the sailing. Are we sailing for sailing's sake? Are we sailing to get somewhere? We can talk about this now, talk about it later, but for me, sailing has always been the way, the method that I choose to travel. Travel is number one, and sailing is the preferred method. I think that we've always pretty much said that we sail to travel, and so we don't have one destination. I think it would kill us if we had one destination in mind, and I think we'd both start feeling hemmed in, and you suddenly got deadlines and things to think about.
Sorry for interrupting, but while I've got you here, if you like what we do and you want to support us and become a Patreon, or join us on FTB Mates, or even drop a quid in the rum fund, go to followtheboat.com/pub. Of course, come to the pub.
So what about perhaps people out there listening to this who are looking to become liveaboard cruisers, who have perhaps taken a sabbatical and only have 3 years in which to do this?
Yeah, they have to live by a timetable and deadlines. Very different to us.
And quite often the destination may be the same place they started off from, and they have a finite amount of time.
Right, you mean the final destination, but they're going to have lots of destinations at drop-off point.
Yeah. But even they may have a slightly different attitude to living on a boat and travelling by boat, because they have a finite amount of time in which to get back to the beginning.
Yes.
Which is almost going back to Danny's idea of the return journey and not looking forward to that return journey. I mean, how must it be knowing that you only have a finite amount of time before you have to get off the boat and finish your journey altogether?
I know that we've spoken to liveaboards over the years who did that and then decided to carry on. They found a way to do it and never went back to work and back to what they did before. So they found a way to continue. And I like that. I like the idea that you can make a decision. You can change your mind. You can just change your mind whenever you want to. So that's great. But if you're stuck on that 3-year option, there is one route to take pretty much. Usually there's one route. It's east to west. There's a fairly well-known trail around the world and places to stop. It's fantastic. So I think what you're saying, are you saying that those people, for them, it's as much about the whole business of living on a boat becomes as important as the places they're going to see, do you think? Because they could go around the world by bus or plane.
Well, if you're following that well-trodden path, let's say you left from Europe, your big journey is going to be perhaps crossing the Atlantic, and your destination will be the Caribbean, and that becomes perhaps your end goal for that period, to get to the Caribbean for Christmas. And then the second half of that journey will be to cross the Pacific, back through Southeast Asia and back to Europe as their return journey. And I think for perhaps for those people doing it in that finite amount of time, the journey and the destination is much more set in stone.
I wouldn't see that second part as the return, because they're constantly going round. They're doing a loop, so obviously they're going to end up in the place they started originally, but there are going to be lots of destinations along the way, and the goal is to sail around the world, to check that off the list and to get back to where you started, and perhaps then leave that lifestyle and go back to the old lifestyle.
Take Jason and Lee, for example, who returned to Australia. They're now selling their boat, by the way. It's boats on the market. They're Jeannot, not their Beneteau, so if anyone's interested, get in touch with them. But having spoken to Lee, their idea is to travel on land for some years and to go back to sailing, to start
at a later date,
to start their journey again.
Right.
Where do they fall into that whole idea of journey and destination?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear from them what they think as well. I think we can get a bit too navally gazing about this, but it kind of calls for that. Now, so my little rant, I don't mind the saying, it's the journey, not the destination, but for me, putting that not in the middle of the sentence turns it into an either or. It's a binary, straightforward choice. It's one or the other. And I think that's the problem I have with the saying, because quite often the destination is better than the journey, but equally the journey is better than the destination. You know, so one isn't always better than the other. And we're talking practically here about sailing. So when we go across big oceans, when we're sailing for, you know, days, weeks at a time, it's all about the journey. It's not really about anything else. We're not really particularly thinking about the destination. We're thinking about getting through on a daily basis, aren't we?
That's very true. I was thinking about some of the longer passages we've done. The last sort of longish passage, I suppose, was when we left the Anambas to get to Borneo. And I remember saying goodbye to Pete and Jen and leaving that northeast corner of the Anambas with some weather forecasts for good sailing. I wasn't thinking about the destination at all. I was thinking about the fact that this next part of the journey is going to be a 4-day, 5-day sail, I think.
Yes, with some dodgy looking weather.
Yeah, and at that point in time, it was 100% the journey.
Yeah.
No, because I think, you know, I try not to have too many expectations of a destination anyway. I'm one of those people that likes to be surprised.
I do all the research. I'm the opposite to you.
Correct, yeah. I'm so easily entertained that you could drop me off in a shopping mall in Essex. I'd still find something entertaining to do.
Simple soul.
Yes. But yeah, very much about just 100% the journey for those longer journeys, because, and I think this goes back to the idea of just taking each day as it comes. If you know that the next few days, the next couple of weeks are going to be spent doing the same thing every day, i.e. sailing across a big ocean, then you have to embrace each day as it comes and make the most of each day. And each day will be different when you break it down. You might catch a fish one day, you might spend a bit of time repairing something another day. And yes, and for me there's very little regard to the destination except to make sure we are navigating correctly.
Yes. And also, even if it's a day hop, if it's like only 30 miles or something, when we're doing it, we're concentrating on it, aren't we? 100%. You have to be. We've banged on about it long enough on our podcast that when you're sailing and navigating, you've got to be totally committed to it. So you don't really think much about the destination while you're in the act of the sailing, or as it's been recently, the motoring for a lot of the time. It's about the navigation and making sure that you don't hit anything and nothing hits you round here, that sort of thing. So I think sailing is quite unique. You don't sit back and let the boat take you. You're actively sailing it. Whereas if you get a bus somewhere or a plane, you're just sitting in there as a passenger. You're being taken somewhere, so you're not actively driving or flying the plane. Maybe there's a difference. That's
a good one, actually. That's a very good. The passive versus the active part of the journey. Let's hear from Stephen Dejanis, who says, I was tempted to vote journey, but journeying without a goal, dream, vision, destination ever reached. Well, let's put it this way. Without that target, the archer's skill, effort, inspiration, even initial interest would be pointless. The destination makes the journey possible and manifest. That said, a satisfying, impassioned destination without a meaningful and fulfilling journey is unreachable.
That's a great comment. I really love that.
I love the archer analogy as well.
Yeah, he's a bit of both, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's saying that a bit of both. I agree with him there.
Daniel Parker, another FTB mate, says, as has been said, no matter where you go, there you are. It's all one big journey.
So he's coming at it from the philosophical point. He's absolutely right. One thing you can't do is get away from yourself. And if you don't like yourself very much and you take yourself onto a boat, you're really going to have problems, because it's a very small, tiny space, and you really do need to get to grips with life. I liked Michael Tillman. He's coming at it from a practical point of view about the sailing. Both, he says, enjoy the trip. That's why most people get a sailboat in the first place. Then immerse yourself in whatever place you find yourself. Embrace it. Otherwise, you're just another nasty liveaboard that is grumpy all the time. Oh, we know a few of those. What do you think?
I like that particularly.
Yeah.
That last comment. I mean, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Just because you are living this beautiful life on a sailboat doesn't stop you from becoming a grumpy old, normally man, propping up the bar,
Yes.
being negative about every single thing in their life.
Yes, and it's interesting, isn't it, that quite a lot of those have reached their destination.
Yeah, true.
They've got somewhere and they're not going on any further and they've just become complacent, and then that turns to grumpiness. It's a real thing.
It is.
It's a big thing in
Yep.
cruising.
We see it all the time.
A certain place, and there's a certain, Southeast Asia is where quite a few of them wash up, because in the olden days you used to go from Langkawi or Phuket, across the Indian Ocean up through the Red Sea to the Med, but that has stopped for a number of years, 10 years or so, because of the piracy being so bad in the Red Sea, although it is starting again now. And people would get there and they think, oh, I don't want to go around South Africa. They'd either sell the boat or they'd hang up their boots and just stay in the bar until they die. And then we know a few have died just drinking themselves to death.
Yep.
Horrible.
So for those who don't know, there is such a thing as grumpy sailors.
Oh, there is.
We do exist. I'm one of them.
Yeah, sometimes we both are.
No shit.
Oh, I like this.
No shit. What a great username. They've commented a few times recently. Too many times at sea I have sworn I hate sailing. Then we finally arrived at a beautiful location and completely forget about the misery of getting there. Amnesia is not only a thing that happens to women after childbirth in order to have another baby, but 1% of the time on the journey the water is absolutely spectacular, and no wonder we keep going through the process.
I totally agree with that comment. That is absolutely, for me, spot on. Now, I was never lucky enough to have children, but I do know a lot of girlfriends who absolutely say that. You forget it, that's why you have another one. And when it comes to all our journeying, all of things we think about, pretty much 99% of them are the fantastic times. I mean, you do remember the spectacularly bad times as well, but most of the times it's just immediately you get to the other end, it's all gone, all the crap that's happened, hasn't it?
Yep, absolutely. And so that's why the destination is vital.
Yeah.
It's a regenerative procedure. You know, you get to a destination and you can kick back, you relax. So many times we've done an arduous journey and we've just been exhausted when we got to the destination, too exhausted to discover it for the first couple of days.
Yes.
You recoup, you rest, and then you're ready for the next stage. And yes, as they say, as No Shit says, you forget everything that happened.
You certainly do. But it's quite interesting. I always think of when we go into marinas, we try not to, but of course the last couple of years we've been in marinas quite a lot because we had no choice. So quite often when you go into marina, the first couple of days is quite exciting because you can plug in, you can have everything going at the same time and you haven't got to worry about power or anything. You can just step off the boat, there are fabulous hot showers, you can stand under for 20 minutes and there's all the shopping that you could desire. But give it 3 days and I'm jaded and I want out.
Yeah, yeah.
So destinations are great sometimes for a bit and then you want to move on. So I'm not going to do my rant.
Oh, why not?
Well, it's this whole thing about reducing everything to binary choices these days. You know, it's, for instance, cats v monos. I know we've done it.
Yes.
You know, everybody does it. Cat or mono, which is best? You know, and we always end up saying, well, it's horses for courses, and one isn't better than the other. It's what you choose. And I always say chocolate or chips. You know, actually, they're both great in the right situation. And I'd say the same for journeys and destinations. So why do we have this human need always to choose one thing or the other? One thing's got to be better than the other. It doesn't always have to be that way. This is my mini rant about life generally.
Well, of course, there is this whole idea of recently in social media, this divisiveness that's happened in social media and in mainstream media. There seems to be this feeling that some people, some organisations want to divide and conquer. They want to divide us, and so perhaps we've caught this mentality of an either or mentality and feeling the need to put ourselves in one camp or the other.
Yes, tribal, isn't it?
Yeah, and forgetting that, well, actually we can be in both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we always say, because what you read in the papers and on social media about countries bears no resemblance to what you actually see. So get out there, see it yourself, and don't make your mind up and join one camp just because you feel like it. It kind of goes hand in hand with this human obsession of rating everything, you know, the top 5, and this is the number 1 best thing. Or this
But we do that as well.
I know we do. We've fallen into the trap. I don't like it. I think, you know, when it comes to the tallest 5 things in the world, the widest, the heaviest, the smallest, that's factual, that's scientific, you know, that particular mouse is the smallest mouse you're ever going to get, or this particular shark or whale is the biggest you're ever going to get. But I think that's fair enough. If you're interested and you want, you know, it matters to you that something's big or small, fine. But when it comes to most things like rating, recently it's been dive sites. You know, this dive site's the best one, you've got to go here. You know, we're in a particular place now in Lembeth Strait. If anyone looks us up on AIS, they'll find out where we are. It has 90 dive sites, one of the dive instructors said to me the other day. Basically the entire thing is a dive site, and yet you've got all these different named sites that are all rated. This one's 4-star, this one's 5-star, this one's better. You know, it's meaningless.
Especially because they're changeable feasts.
Exactly.
You know, it depends. You know, one day you might see that hairy frogfish in this location, and then next day you might see whatever it is, an unseen nudie in that location, and so they do change.
Yeah, like TripAdvisor, giving us a hotel 5 stars because you had a great time. The next bloke gives it 1 star. How meaningful is that?
That's another philosophical question perhaps we can answer another time. Yeah. We should just thank everyone who commented.
Yes.
I did say in the poll we will read out the best comments, but please don't think that if we didn't read yours, it's not because yours was the best. It's just because we have a finite amount of time to do this in. But we do appreciate and read and normally answer all the comments. So thank you very much.
Okay, so do we have time for any more? We're going to talk about Williams, or what do you think?
Oh yes, we'll talk about Williams because that was about last week's comment. We should just read out Kev's comment. Kev Berry, another supporter of ours, who says it's not about the destinations, it's about the repairs you can do there.
Oh, so true. Spoken like a cruiser who knows what he's talking about. I mean, this is happening right here, right now.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring us back down to earth with Darren Jay's quote,
yep,
which I thought was great. The last one on Journey v Destination. I have to drive from Cornwall to Burnley. The journey is a pain in the arse and the destination is crap. With apologies to Burnley. Sometimes it's not about the journey or the destination. In this case, it's about the great sausage rolls at Gloucester Services.
And that surprises me. If he's leaving from Cornwall, surely he's got some great Cornish pasties to feast on for the journey to Burnley.
That's a hell of a for anyone who doesn't know Britain very well. That's a long way. That's from right down in the southwest corner, right up north to Burnley. I wonder why he does that.
I didn't ask Darren. Let us know. Would love to know more about your journey.
Yeah.
I mean, especially for us because, you know, we know these areas fairly well, and yes, we'd like a little taste of home. Sausage rolls and Cornish pasties.
Yes,
he didn't mention the Cornish pasties.
And just for our American friends, there's nothing at all romantic about what Darren has just said. It may sound exotic, but it's not at all.
Not just our American friends, but anyone who hasn't been to. I mean, I love Cornwall. I have to say, I remember those car trips as a family, young family in our Renault 4, which probably could top out at 50 miles an hour, driving down to Cornwall. And that journey was always very exciting for us as children, but I imagine for my parents that must have been tedious as hell.
It must have.
Especially with us fighting in the back seat.
Yeah, same with me and my brother.
No iPads to keep us happy, just a game of I Spy.
My dad did actually stop the car and put us both out once. Came straight back, but it didn't half scare us.
Imagine how different your life would be if it left you there.
I know. And also Burnley, I've been to Burnley and it's very pretty. There's some very pretty bits of Burnley. Some nasty bits, like everywhere, but some pretty bits too. So yes, so we will finish. We're going to read out William's story, aren't we?
Yes.
Do you want to explain it?
So this was actually on last week's podcast.
Yes, 017.
Where we talked about the people that we meet, or rather what is the best thing about travel, but we were sort of focusing on the people that we meet.
Because that was our answer. You know.
And it seems as if it was William Pace's answer as well.
So shall I start it?
Yep.
Okay, it's quite a long one, but I think everyone will be very moved by this. So
I would say more than moved. You might be brought to close to tears.
Yes. So this is what William says. The number of times my wife and I set out for somewhere and made landfall somewhere else, I can't even count. The best experiences are entirely unplanned and organic and wholly about the people you meet, locals, cruisers, whoever.
Our fondest memory is about being human. We were in the tour motors. Now, the tour motors are part of French Polynesia.
Okay.
I had to look that up.
Okay, good. Glad
French
you did.
Polynesia, yes, in the Pacific. And had stopped for a night at a small atoll inhabited by a couple. The couple on the island fished and farmed pearls for a living. We had been invited to attend church the following day in a small chapel they had made.
We asked how many would attend. They said, when times are hard, maybe 20 from the surrounding atolls. When times are good, maybe just them. We had a wonderful time singing in Polynesian. They had a phonetic hymnal. It was nice.
Afterwards, we asked if they had any pearls to trade. We had a few things from Central America that we didn't use, boxed wine and the like. And let's face it, most boxed wine goes by untouched because it's horrible stuff. They said they would be happy to see what we had. I had an old guitar that the humidity was not so kind to, so I donated it to the church. I found a pair of boat shoes that were too narrow and threw them into the pile.
The husband went straight for the shoes and tried to put them on. The paper was still in the toes. He asked if anyone's feet had ever been in them. I said no, they were new. He took the paper out and they fit him perfectly. He was aided by the fact he had lost a toe to a shark.
Lovely little anecdote,
Yeah.
that. He began crying, no, weeping and sobbing. His wife asked him what was the matter, and he showed her the shoes. She began crying. My wife and I were afraid we'd done something wrong. The man's wife explained that he had never owned a pair of shoes, and now when he goes to visit his relatives in Tahiti, he can go to church wearing them. He couldn't attend barefooted. I mean, I actually had to stop
Yes.
reading at that point.
I think that is quite something, and humbles all of us. That this chap had never had a pair of shoes in his life. They just live on this tiny atoll, and his gratitude for a simple pair of old cast-off shoes is
Well, new. He hadn't worn
yes,
them,
that's true.
but no, you're right. What is rubbish to us is treasures to other people, and yeah, just that simple donation has
Yeah.
changed the man's life,
Yes.
and I imagine probably changed William's life and his wife's
Yes.
life as well.
I think it certainly did, because that was decades ago, and he's still thinking about it now. There is more which I won't read, but basically they wanted to give pearls in return for these, obviously because that's what they did, in return for the shoes, and wanted to give them an entire quart jar full of pearls. And William and his wife said, no, we're not going to take all that, just one for William and one for his wife. And they said, no, one for your children as well. So they just took a handful of pearls in return. I thought it was an extraordinary moment and a wonderful illustration of what you can do as a cruiser, how you can not only discover things yourself, but you can have some impact, direct impact on the places that you go to and the people that you meet.
And moreover, perhaps selfishly, William and his wife have this story, this experience to take with them for the rest of their days. I mean, they'll be able to dine off that, for starters, that story, but that moment of kindness must fill them with joy and an experience that would never be replicated again, I imagine, on their travels.
No, you're not going to get that on a package holiday. It's where cruising comes in, and maybe backpacking and things like that. They're going right off the beaten track to places that are very difficult to get to. We had some inkling of this kind of thing when we set out from Turkey. We were told, when you go down through the Red Sea, there's huge poverty in Sudan and Eritrea particularly. So take things to give, and what they want more than anything, the children want pencils. They want pens and pencils so that they can use them for their schooling. So we loaded up with them. Some friends of our Italian friends of ours took an entire huge locker full of books and all kinds of things to give to the schools there. And we saw children fighting over pencils and little bits and pieces because they had literally nothing. So we were told very early on it's good to have things to give away, and it's something we've kept doing all the way through, isn't it? And we would encourage anyone who is doing this to keep a whole locker full of stuff that you can just give away. So many people around the world are wearing my t-shirts. Okay, I think we've exhausted the subject. Well, we haven't. There's loads more you could say, and there's actually comments that I took a note of, but we haven't had time to read now. But ultimately, do you have a final word on whether it's the journey or the destination? Have you made your mind up?
I think, as I alluded to earlier, when we first started out, it was much more about the journey. And I think now it's probably biased more towards the destination. And that's perhaps partly because of photography and cinematography and filming a location. And as we've discussed in last week's podcast, getting to know the people, the place, the culture, and trying to get under the skin of these places. And I think now, for me, the destination has become much more important.
Yes, it's the driver, isn't it? It's what it's all about. Right, well, on this beautiful sunny day.
Glorious.
Absolutely glorious, and we're going on about it because we've had 2 or 3 days of absolute shit weather here. We are now going to finish, and you're going to finish the podcast in the immortal words of, what are you doing today?
Today, Matthew, I am going to be a diver. I think I need to go down and start scraping the prop, because I just edited a video the other week of me scraping the prop, and I realised that was 2 months ago.